Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Deborah, aka the Sunsetgirlcreates, and today we'll be working on Dimensions, the Gold Collection, and we're going to be doing the Christmas Village ornaments. Today is Tuesday, so come cross stitch with me. So let's see what kind of cross stitch we can get into as we go. I've got this lined up so it has a nice tight view on what I'm actually cross stitching. And I've been working with the camera's angles, and I think this is a really good angle for this. And so I've got 15 that I need to put across here. I had all the way up to here, and my count didn't seem right. What I had done is I had gone one row down too many, so I had to pull the thread out and basically take it back and frog it back. So today, since we're doing counted cross stitch right now, and I thought, since I made that mistake already, that it might be interesting to look up on the Spruce Crafts, okay, the Spruce Crafts, the same one we read from last time on copyright. It was the first one we found, and then, or that could have been the Clouds Factory. This one is the one we had on the 10 Tools last week. And so this week, I found a whole series of cross-stitch blogs, and it's called Learn the Basics of Counted Cross-Stitch. So I thought it might be advantageous while we're on doing cross-stitch, and that I'm doing counted cross-stitch, because there are some things you need to know on the basics to succeed at this, right? And the first one is sometimes knowing what to double check on your pattern. So, when I come across here, I don't have any landmarks to go by to see if I'm really there, except to count backwards, right? Which is fine. That's the way you do it now. But say when I get up here, my line better line up with this half stitch right next to it, right? So if it doesn't line up to that half stitch, then I know that it's wrong. So when I get to the five stitches across up there, we should be right here. So if we're there, we know that we've counted properly, right? So I know that I am going to come in a couple spaces, and I know because I have it over here, I already have the holes kind of where I was doing my stitches before, so I have a pretty good idea when I get to 15. Okay, so with this set of articles was written by Pam Pedersen, and it was updated last on November 17th, 2019. But with cross stitch, it's a lot the same, right? So you're out there and you're working on your cross stitch, and cross stitch is basic, okay? You have basic stitches, and then you have more advanced stitches, right? You can use the basic standard floss, and most basic patterns call for the standard floss for beginners, right? But say you're not a beginner anymore. Say you're more intermediate or advanced, right? Start bringing in some different floss types, right? Because different floss types are cool to have. They're cool to work with. Like, I found the metal ones. I really, really am liking those. I do need to get the stuff to be able to keep them from fraying. And so I'll probably be working on getting that next once I get an opportunity. So I did get some news front on Social Security, and believe it or not, within a month of about 5 weeks of my last doctor's appointment, I got the letter that I had been denied. So, I mean, they really did not, and it was denied on the basis of not being able, what it was is when I was putting all the paperwork together, I filed to ensure that I wasn't able to do an accounting manager's job, right? Because accounting is what I've done, and what most of I've done. But I have been a project manager of sorts at another company. So what Social Security is saying is that yes, I may be disabled and no longer able to do my accounting job, but according to the rules, I still have the ability to do project management. Okay, you can't do project management for one without a license, right? You have to have a license to be able to actually. You have to have a license to actually. What is that? I'm trying to think. Oh, you have to have a license to be a project manager, so you have to have a degree in it, right? I don't have enough work experience ever in my life. Even if I took all the project management experience I don't have enough background in it to be able to go in and do it as a job title now. It's not something I am able to do anymore because I'm not qualified. I just got put in that position because I was needed in that position at another company. So I'm going to do a quick count, okay? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I have a couple extra stitches in there, okay? I'm going to double check my count, so that's 10 and 5. And so I'm going to go 1, 2, I know that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so I thought I was right when I did it because I was kind of counting in my head. And so I was really shocked that it really wasn't 17. And so now we're just going to start building up our frame of the house. Okay, so we're going to put 2 stitches here. We're going to also get ready to put the frame for the window, basically. So as you can see how it's coming at an angle down. We'll have the other half coming up, and that will be our window, right? So this is going to be the basis of the wall for the window. And so we're going to put 2 rows of 2 here, and then we'll go to 2 rows of 3, and then I think it's 3 rows of 4 before we go up to the 5 again. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Counted cross stitch is a fun craft. There are many great patterns that you can stitch up to decorate your home. Give us gifts. If you're brand new to cross stitch, it's best to begin with the basics. Let's explore the essential tools and supplies you need. Learn how to make your first stitch and discover an easy pattern to start off with. It's fun, it's easy, and you'll be stitching like a pro in no time. So the first one is from number 1 of 7 is choosing your cross stitch supplies. Number 2 is your first stitch. Chapter 3 is understanding fabric count. 4 is needles, needles, needles. 5 is make sure you understand floss. 6, reading cross stitch patterns. And then 7 is your first choice, your first cross stitch pattern, okay? So we're going to start off at number 1, and that's choosing your cross stitch supplies. Okay, so we have, this one's called 5 Tools to Organize Your Cross Stitch Supplies. So what are we going to learn why we're cross stitching, right? So as I'm going here, we're putting in our crosses, and the first one we're going to learn about, right, is our tools, right? What are the 5 basic tools to be able to begin cross stitching, counted cross stitching successfully? Okay, it's a bit of challenge to keep all your projects organized, and that includes cross-stitch projects. In fact, the supplies for your cross-stitch projects might be more complicated to organize than other crafts because of all the floss and fabric that cross-stitching involves. However, staying organized, especially if you're working on a big cross-stitch project, will keep your project stress-free and allow you to enjoy the process of creation. Okay? So, by making sure that you're organizing your stuff, will make it so you have a more pleasurable, enjoyable time while you're cross-stitching, right? Okay. So, remember, it's just like diamond painting. You have to kit up and you have to kit down. Well, with cross-stitching, it's similar. You still have to kit up a kit. Even if you get a kit or you buy one, if you just buy the fabric, you buy the pattern and then the floss, you still have to prepare your pattern. You still have to do what you have to do to create that pattern, okay? So, what is it the first thing you need to organize? Well, the first thing we need to organize, the first of 5 things to organize, is your floss. So whether you like to keep your floss in the original package or wind it on a bobbin, there is a wide variety of keeping it organized. So you don't always have to go buy floss bobbins, right? If you can make them yourselves, right? So I took a piece of thick cardstock and I took a bobbin, a plastic bobbin, and I designed this bobbin. It's paper, it's thick cardstock. It's the same stuff I use for silhouette. I designed it and cut it from the silhouette. It was a little side project I did. And I needed 45 of these. I had about 10 plastic ones. So I said, okay, what am I going to do next? Well, I'm going to make disposable ones, I said. When I'm done with these, I don't have to keep them. I can throw them away and make new ones because I have the whole set. I have it all designed. I might round these next time, but I can put rounded edges on them instead. So, you know, it's always one of those things. If you don't have something, there's ways of making them, okay? And that's my point. I don't have a whole lot of money right now. I got this kit from the points that I got from my credit card that I used to pay off my bills. Okay, so this was all from credit card points because if I had to pay cash for this, it would not be happening. Okay, so keeping your floss as is. If you want to keep the floss as is, a stitch bow floss holder is the way to go. Simply place the floss on the top and bottom of the bow. Once you have it on the bow, you can place it in a binder. Okay? So whatever you're using. This one, they're showing a picture of a deer as a bobbin, right? It's a wooden one. You can buy all sorts and shapes and sizes of bobbins. So for skeins that are used but have remaining scraps, bobbins are a great way to keep your floss in order. Use the simple plastic bobbins on a keychain or get a bit fancier by using a themed wooden bobbins. Be sure to purchase a bobbin winder as it will make winding go faster. So it does make winding go faster from a skein to, and I have a bobbin winder, but it's not going to be this kind of bobbin winder, right? I have a bobbin winder in the form of a yarn winder. Okay, it winds yarn, but it doesn't do this, right? So, floss for a particular project. If you just want to organize the floss for a particular project, use a simple floss organizer. You cannot add a bulk floss on them, but they do allow for smaller portions for projects, okay? So there are ways to organize it. Like I showed you, I make my own bobbins, right? And I just wrap my yarn around it, my thread, my floss, whatever you want to call it, right? And the ones that I keep, like the ones I have for my hot air balloon projects, those I had to actually buy the separate skeins. So those skeins are wound onto plastic bobbins because I'm going to keep that skein when it's done. Okay? And it's just an easy, organized way to keep your floss. Now remember, floss to you, if you're cross stitching, is just as important as your yarn if you're knitting or your diamonds. So a lot of people out there can really relate to diamond painting these days, and that's why I kind of diamond painting and cross stitch go a lot of hand in hand. For one thing, a lot of the same patterns are available in cross stitch as well as diamond painting. The difference between cross stitch is it comes with fabric instead of a canvas. You have to sew in your counted cross stitches on a canvas. You basically you grab a drill and you pick it up and you put it on your already sticky canvas, okay? But the patterns are similar, right? So if I look at this pattern here, I could blow it up and put it onto a I could go get a blank canvas and actually put this on a cross stitch canvas, okay? Or I could put it on I could order all the DMC colors and diamonds, right, that I need for this pattern, and I could put it on a blank piece of canvas, put my own glue on it, because you can buy your own poured glue. If it comes sticky already, that's even better. If it doesn't, it's on a grid, it's the same thing. The only thing is it blank, and you have to count it just like you have to do counted cross stitch. So if you want to take your diamond painting to a new challenge, you can always get a blank canvas and get a cross stitch pattern. The numbers, the DMC codes that you find on your drills, on your diamond drills, are the same codes that are used to do the floss for DMC. So you see, DMC is the main one. They built this floss. And in order for them to take their patterns and easily move them over, they kept the same color codes and used those color codes to make the drills. It's that simple, okay? So they are very interrelated, where maybe people would, if you're not a counted cross stitcher, it's not something you came across before, right? I came across it. I've been an avid cross stitcher for a long, long time, okay? I've been cross stitching probably about 10 years less than I've been crocheting, okay? I was about 19 or 20 when I picked up my first cross stitch pattern that I can remember. Now I remember I did a lot of embroidery as a kid. I did a lot of floss related projects. I was never a bracelet or it did macrame. What the heck? But it's not really something that I enjoy doing, is sitting here tying knots in rope. Some people enjoy that, right? I'm not taking anybody's enjoyment away, because what I enjoy may be something that somebody else doesn't enjoy, right? And I just figured out a mistake I made, and I'm going to fix it right here. Because if I look here and I'm doing my counting, I should have only had one with 2 on it, right? But I have 2 rows. So this is going to be simple. I'm going to go ahead and do this one because this one's going to turn into a 4. Okay, but I am going to come down here and fix this, because I can simply run in here because it's just a stitch below, and I can quickly add that stitch to our pattern, okay? And then that brings my stitch count back correct, right? And so that goes back to show you that you really need to pay attention. And the old saying says, measure twice, cut once, okay? It's kind of the same thing with counted cross stitch. Count twice and do your pattern with your floss once, okay? And I constantly am looking at my pattern to make sure that I'm keeping on track of where I need to be. And so it's really important that when I see that something goes wrong, if I can fix it, I go back and fix it right away, okay? So we have a couple rows of 4 that we need to do. So the next one, after organizing your floss, comes to organizing your patterns, okay? So organizing patterns, what do you need to do to organize your pattern? Okay, so let's see what they say. Organizing your cross-stitch patterns can take a bit of time, but it will help you in the long run, especially if you buy a bunch of patterns at once and plan on using them throughout the year. One of the easiest ways to organize patterns is to use page protectors and binder notebooks. Go a step further by labeling the binders by themes. So if you label your binders by themes, you will be able to find your patterns. Another way of doing it is if you don't want to label various binders and you're just starting off, you can use the, like back in school days, you'd have the separators between your notepad that told you what subject it is. So you can get those separators and put them in there and label them so you know what you're looking at, right? So it's very important. Okay, and this is really about patterns that you buy online. So like I keep my patterns on Ravelry, right? When I buy my knitting patterns. And when I open Knit Companion, my patterns sync right from Ravelry. So I can see all of my patterns that I own in Ravelry, and I can pull them up and I can work them. And I can show you how that works when we have our on Friday, when we have our video. I will show you my little trick, okay? Okay, so I'm lining up perfect. Awesome. So one of the easiest ways to organize patterns is to use by labeling the binders by themes. Creating binder themes will make finding a pattern easier. If binders aren't your thing, you can organize your pattern with file folders and a filing cabinet. Okay? So however you want to organize, okay? The biggest challenge of organizing your fabric for cross-stitch patterns is folding it properly and making sure it continues to stay neat. One way to make sure your linens are kept nice and clean is to fold them on foam board and stack them like you would a book. They would fit perfectly in a bookcase with the foam board. If you're worried about creases in your fabric, roll the cloth and stack in a bin. This will keep the fabric from creasing, still keep your craft room clean. Now, if I could talk, we would be doing good, right? Yeah, I mean, it's all about how can you organize, okay? Now, I have an organizer that I use for my vinyl that I would be happy to use put my cross-stitch fabrics on if I needed to, okay? I've taken them down because I need to rearrange things in my craft room, and until I can find the perfect spot to put them on the wall, I won't be putting them back up. The reason that I'm not putting them back up is I am 100% waiting to finish figuring out how to do my diamond painting wall first. Okay, so I need to figure out how I want to organize that, And the hardest part is I have some things on that wall that I need to figure out if I want to leave them and go around them, or if I just want to go around our sign we have in there. So it does take a little bit of time to think about it, okay? I like to try to think about things, figure things out, so that I'm not doing things over and over again wrongly, okay? So the next thing we want is organizing needles. Your needles are one of the most important items to keep organized. If you have pets or children, losing a needle can be a scary thing. Many cross-stitchers know that the arm of your couch is not a good place to keep your needles. No, that's why I have my needle minder here, which allows me to magnetize and put my needle and let it just sit there, and it's going to stay there because of the magnet. It's got a magnet on one side and a magnet on the other. So I can put my needle either on the front or the back side. It really doesn't matter, right? That's the nice thing about having a needle minder. Okay, so I wasn't even paying to the next one. I just went on and talked about it. So needle minders keep track of your needles, not only when you're working on a project, but also when you're finished. They have become so popular that the various themes can be considered collector's items. And you can. Needle minders and cover minders, they're the same thing basically. And it's what's commonly used when it's commonly used with cross stitchers for needles, and it's commonly used for diamond painters to hold their plastic out of the way. Okay, I don't use it because of the way I have mine set up. I don't have to have a needle minder or even a cover minder on it. I do have it if I wanted to. To me, it's just a pain in the backside. I can just flip it over my board and pick it back up when I'm done. Easy peasy. So number 5 is a cross-stitch travel bag. Okay, so one great thing about cross-stitching is that you can take your projects anywhere and stitch in a coffee shop, on a bus, or in a park. The only issue, however, is carrying around your supplies. You need a tote that can handle your hoops, your floss, and any other accessories you'd like to have on hand. Any tote will work, but there are special ones that are specific to cross-stitch and other needlework that can make organization much easier. Okay, so those are our 5 tools to organize cross-stitch, and our next one is the first stitch, and let me just see if we have time to go over. Yes, we can go over these. Yeah, they're not too long at all. So our next one are the 5 basic stitches in cross stitch. So what are the 5 basic stitches? Let's read it and see, okay? Have you always wanted to learn a new craft? Cross stitch is the perfect solution. Oops. Yeah, I thought I was looking at the wrong one. Sorry. Learning to cross stitch doesn't have to be intimidating. Oh, wait a minute. It is really, you can do small projects or large, whimsical, more traditional. The patterns and tools out there are endless, okay? Learning to cross stitch doesn't have to be intimidating. If you know how to accomplish 5 basic stitches, you will be on your way to a bright and stitchy future. Once you have these stitches down, you can build up and try more intermediate stitches. While these beginning stitches may seem like no-brainers, if you master them, you will have a beautiful end product. Okay? So, number 1, the first one, cross stitch, what I'm doing now. A cross stitch is an X-shaped embroidery stitch from which the name cross stitch embroidery is derived. So see all these X's right here? Those are all the single cross stitches, right? A cross stitch is simply by pulling it in, putting it in one direction, pulling it through in one direction, and putting it back through, and in the end you have a cross stitch, right? And I don't want to go all the way down, and I'm not going to go all the way down because I am going to pull this back out, because I do not want to do crosses right now. I did it simply to show you what a cross stitch was, okay? So it's a basic simple stitch, and the stitch is the basis for all cross stitch. You will see it the most, and it is the most commonly used. This is the stitch with cross stitch. This is the stitch with cross stitch. You will base all other stitches on the first one. You will add or subtract to create other stitches and patterns. You can use the stitch on any kind of fabric, but the most common is Aida cloth, which ranges in a variety of sizes. If you are just beginning, a larger weave of fabric is the best. You can also use plastic canvas for practice. Don't limit yourself to just fabric with this stitch. Branch out to non-conventional ideas such as wicker chairs, netting for screen doors, and tennis rackets. So you have all kinds of things that come in the form that you can do cross stitching on. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get my needle back on real quick. And I need to trim it, and then it'll go right through. Okay, here we go. And I'm just going to put a half stitch in, and I'll show you what I'm going to do so that I don't have to pull that back through and try to pull it and, you know, bring it back to the front to be able to do this. I'll show you a quick trick. Okay, I put it in the wrong hole. I know that I have the same color right up here, so I'm just going to pop it in where I know it's going to be needed. Okay, and then I can go back, and it's not going to mess up the pattern that I'm currently working on. Okay, because that stitch is going to be relatively the same stitch. And let me move down just a little bit so I don't flick the camera. Sorry about that. And there we go. So, half stitch. The cross stitch is made up of 2 half stitches. Half stitches are stitched individually in some cross stitch patterns, and they are used at times to create a sense of depth in the pattern. A half stitch is used a lot in outlining designs and making specific shapes. It's also used a lot to make corners and circles. Okay, if you look here, that's what I'm busy doing. All I'm doing is half stitches. And the reason I'm doing half stitches now is because when I'm done doing all the half stitches, I'll turn around and do the other half of the stitch. And then they're all consistent, right? It's a good way to keep your tension right, okay? So just in same with knitting and crocheting, you need to be able to keep the same tension that you need, right? So you need to be able to have your own tension. So you need to make sure that when you start, you practice that tension. See where that tension needs to be. How hard do you need to pull it? You don't need to pull your string, your thread long, especially with Aida, because it grabs onto the fabric pretty good. And you can just do your stitches, okay? It's pretty simple. The nice thing about Aida is it shows you where you come up and down. It shows you where your next stitch is going to be because you have your holes. And all you're going to be doing is filling up the squares on the canvas. Okay, so the whole goal is just fill up the squares on the canvas. It's just like doing diamond painting. So this is going to be a full coverage, okay? And it's not a partial. So it's the similar thing. You can make partial, or you can make a full canvas, right? So that's pretty cool. So the more and more you sit here and think about it, the more and more a lot of diamond stuff correlates back to what we're talking about in cross stitch. Half stitch, a half stitch, just one over, can be used as a back stitch. A back stitch will go up and down instead of diagonal. Half stitches are used for more details such as eyes, rounded corners on flowers, and creating spirals. A half stitch can create a nice flow to rounded patterns. They are used to create circles where just a normal stitch would create a box. So as you can see, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done to finish this pattern, right? But the way it gets done is to just keep working at it. And it takes longer to do cross stitch than it will ever take you to diamond paint, okay? So if you don't have patience, it's not for you. If you want to build patience, it's for you. If you want to learn to be calm, you want to relax, you want to create something beautiful, that you're not just putting diamonds on a canvas, but you're doing it in a different manner and a different medium, is all I'm doing. So if counted cross stitch is done with Aida fabric, diamond painting is similar in the fact that it is done with canvas, but everything else is pretty much the same, right? Your patterns are the same. The only thing you're not going to get on a diamond painting that you can get more detail about on a canvas better is when you are able to put the back stitch in. You're able to really bring out the design, right? Okay, so the next one is a quarter stitch. The quarter stitch resembles a half stitch, okay? But it is stitched into the center of the Aida fabric square. So if I were to do a quarter stitch, I'm going to pull up my floss, and I don't have quarter stitches in here, but I will show you quickly. I am going to put my needle down right in the middle of that square, and I'm going to push, okay? And you want to make sure that you're in the center of the square when you push in, okay? So now you're going to have a quarter stitch. That's what a quarter stitch is, okay? It's just finding the center of that square. And quarter stitches are used to create the petite cross stitch. While many seem like a easy cross stitch, it is a little difficult to get it spot on. It can be difficult to get it exactly even. Try this stitch a couple of times as practice. It is used quite a bit to give a project better curves. Quarter stitches can be frustrating to learn at first, but once you get the feel of where you need to place the needle, you can create more texture and more twists and turns with the floss. So it really depends on how much curvature you want. It depends on a lot of things. So like this pink you'll see here, these are all going to stay half stitches. This pink right here along the edge, then they will stay as half stitches. And see how they give more dimension? This pops out more, this has more dimension, and that's what that means, okay? The 3/4 stitch. The 3/4 stitch is composed of a half stitch and a quarter stitch. 3/4 stitches are used to create more detail in a cross stitch design. This one can be a bit complicated to start with. It takes some practice to get it just right. It is also used as an outline stitch to make curves. So if you've practiced your quarter stitch, then you're going to be able to do this stitch, okay? So 3/4 stitch, right? You come up And I'm going to come up here because this is where I have to go for my next stitch anyways, so that makes it nice. You come up into your corner, and you're going to go to that middle point, and you're going to put your needle in the middle point like a quarter stitch, okay? And that's what a quarter stitch is. You will see this stitch a lot in patterns for faces and creating spirals for flowers and pumpkins. It will add depth to your project to ensure your piece does not look blocked, but flows. Be careful when using this stitch on linen. It may pull the fabric out of shape and cause distortion. Place on a bigger piece of Aida fabric before tackling this stitch on linen. So I would recommend highly to get used to doing it on your Aida first. Linen is more complicated. You can do it as a beginner if you want it as a challenge, okay? Not telling you can't. Linen is beautiful. And the cross stitching that you can get on linen is just gorgeous, okay? There's counted cross stitches out there that have printed patterns on them. They are done in linen, and you can get one of those to practice doing your stitches on linen. I would recommend getting one of those so you can kind of get the rhythm and the feel for what you need to be doing on linen. It's just a good practice, and you'll get a cute pattern done at the same time, right? So why not? The last one is backstitch. So a backstitch is used to make lines around the cross stitch to stitch letters and wording. Some designs that are completely composed entirely of backstitch. Backwork embroidery uses variations of the backstitch to create intricate designs, typically using black or a single color. Backstitches are the easiest of all stitches and used to add more definition to the design. It is used a lot to outline a piece of stitching to show what the pattern really is. Aside from lettering, it can be used for facial expressions. It gives dimension and makes a pattern more defined. To add, it is fun to add contrasting colors for projects that include clothing or flowers. While this is simple stitch, learning black work is complicated. You can use a back stitch in just about any cross stitch pattern. This stitch is great for fabric. This is specific to cross stitching, such as cotton, apron fabric, or denim. You can manipulate this fabric to make circles and flowing letters. You did it. You've mastered the essentials of cross stitch. These 5 basic stitches will help you move on to complicated stitches and elaborate patterns and designs. You will have the bricks to build a cross stitch house. And what am I doing? I'm building a cross stitch house. I do see some things that I need to fix. I see some missing crosses over here. I see I missed one over there, and I have a few that have to be fixed up there. And that can be fixed I could go in and fix it. That's not a big deal. It's not something I'm too concerned about, but it is something you'll see when you get going. Excuse me. You'll see when it gets going that this pattern works out nicely and these stitches work out great, but you'll also see when you get done with your darker colors and you look back and you kind of have a chance to kind of look at them after you're done. You can kind of go see where there might be mistakes and you'll be able to go in and fix them. It's simple as adding the cross stitch to it. It's probably just been missed. You do your best to try to do it as completely and neatly as possible, even though that doesn't always happen. So we want to thank you for coming to the video. If you like this video, a thumbs up would be awesome. It would really help our channel. If you don't like it, a thumbs down is fine, but please let us know in the comments below why. If you want to be part of the Sunset Girl Creates family, which welcome to our 2 new subscribers. It's great to have you here. Great to have you part of the family. You've brought us up to 16. I know it's a small starting channel, and I'm just growing it slowly because I'm still kind of putting some things together for the channel. So come join us. Come see how we progress. If you want to know every time I upload a video, all you have to do is hit the bell icon right next to it, next to the subscribe button. It'll let you know every time I upload a video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave your comments below and I'll be able to help you out. All of the things that I used today are in the description below, as well as my email. I'm wishing you all a very happy Tuesday and have a great day. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day.